You're listening to Kate Palmer from sparkletart.com, and today I'm going to create some mail art poppies with both a card and an envelope using products from Lindy Stamp Gang. This is the final product. As you can see, there's both a card and a matching envelope. To start with, you're going to need a Versamark ink pad and a stamp that has a bold section and an outline section. I'm using some poppies. Ink up the bold section and paint with magicals from Lindy's Stamp Gang. Now you can see I'm using these whilst they're dry as a powder. The powder will cling to the Versamark ink and you'll be able to use this to stamp with. I'm going to start with Autumn Maple Crimson, but you could use any colour really. This looks gorgeous on everything. Next I'm applying Poinsettia Red, but if you don't have this colour you could use Rudolphs Red Nose, which is another beautiful red tone in the magicals from Lindy's Stamp Gang. Use this to finish colouring the flower. And the last section I'm going to sort of make a black centre. So I'm using Midnight Rendezvous Raven, which is my favourite of the blacks, and I'm just adding this to the very middle. Now from here it's actually quite simple. You only need to colour the stamp once to do both the envelope and the card. I know that seems insane, but there's a lot of colour packed into the magicals. Spritz the stamp just lightly with some water and use this to stamp onto your envelope. Now as you can see, that first image wasn't particularly crisp or filled in, but the second is. What you'll find is the more water that you add, the better the image will be, and you can just keep adding water and stamping with this until all the colour is gone. Now I'm just going to use that envelope and I've stamped over the one that I did first. Now without putting any more product onto the stamp, I'm also going to do the card. And what you might notice here is each image gets more and more of a watercolour look. It's because those colours blend more and more on the stamp as I add more water and stamp with it. Now as you get towards the sort of end of life of this technique, you'll notice that the poppies I'm stamping turn out paler, but this also gives a beautiful subtle toned result. Now once my backgrounds are dry, I'm going to stamp over using the outline component of the stamp set with Delicata ink. Now I'm kind of offset stamping this, so it's not exactly where the outline should be. I just like a touch of gold. I'm adding this on both the envelope and the card. Now that I've finished with the gold stamping, I'm going to use a stamp positioner and a beautiful dark black ink in Versamark Onyx Black to stamp some bold black outlines to give it a bit of pop. I've just cut some masks out of post-it notes to protect the poppies above, and I'm going to add those bold black outlines on both the envelope and the card. Now to finish things off, on the card I'm just going to stamp a simple phrase, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of extra colour. To do this, I've mixed the magicals with some water in a palette, and I'm using a small brush just to flick some of those coordinating colours over the top of the envelope, and I'm just drawing on a little stem with a lovely beautiful green colour. Now you can add as much or as little of this as you like. I'm just sort of adding a touch just to sort of bring it together. Now on the card I've added the same splatters, but I'm also going to add a little bit of jet black ink just to differentiate it from the envelope a little. Now once these are dry, I'm using a black gel pen to enhance the middle of my poppies so that they're sort of raised and shiny. I couldn't figure out a way to do this with embossing powder, so the pen worked really well. On the card front, I'm going to add a little bit of green Pan Pastels just to sort of make it stand out that little bit more. I've mounted it, and again I'm adding a little bit of finishing touches with that black gel pen. You can see here how gorgeous and shiny that looks against the sparkly background of the magicals. Once mounted and completely finished and dried off, the card and envelope look just like this. So they're similar enough so that you can tell that they go together, but different enough so that they don't look like carbon copies of each other. I'm hoping the person I'm sending this to will really appreciate it They haven't had a card from me, or not a handmade one, in a while, so I hope they like it. Now, this has been color corrected, so the colors are a bit more true. You can see how beautiful and vibrant the magicals look once on that white cardstock, and it was so simple to do. You just have to paint that stamp once with the magicals and you get all of those images. So I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I hope this has given you another idea on how to use your magicals from Lindy's Stamp Gang.